Hey, what's happening, everybody? James here, and today we are actually going to be looking at the back of a few watches as we continue our series on watch basics. So today we're going to be talking about finishing on watches, and to help me out in illustrating this, I've got two different watches that we'll be looking at here. One is my Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin Perpetual Calendar Enamel, and the other is my Dan Reuter chronograph DR02. So two great examples of some fine watch finishing. Very different watches, obviously, and very different finishing and components, as you can see here. So some very different styles, but gives us a nice combination of illustrations of some different aspects of watch finishing that we're going to talk about. So we're going to start with the JLC here, just because I love this watch. If you've not seen my review of this JLC on my channel, I would highly recommend it because it is a beauty. And we're not talking about the front today, so I'm not going to go to the front, but we're looking at the back. So let's talk about some different aspects of watch finishing. So what are we looking at on this JLC? Let me try and get it in focus here so you can really see it. So the thing that I think most people will notice, or maybe is most common in watch finishing when we're talking about it, is something called Côtes de Genève. And it's basically striping or Geneva stripes. And you can see that very visibly on the rotor and on the bridge here. So both very noticeable. I don't know why I'm struggling to get this in focus, but there we go. That's a little bit better. And you can see, on different watches, you'll notice kind of a different level of depth of Côtes de Genève. The real quality Côtes de Genève are things like you can see here, where there's very, very clear side-to-side distinction between the parts that are more shallow and the parts that are more pronounced. And again, that's why it looks like stripes, because you actually use a machine to make stripes on it. And that's how it ends up looking. So I love that JLC aligns them both. As you can kind of see, I've got it right about there. It's pretty close, where the stripes on both the bridge and the stripes on the rotor match up so that they're exactly straight. Just to jump over, I guess if we're going to go back and forth a bit, you can see we also have some Côtes de Genève on the Reuter watch here, just more so on the rotor. If you go underneath the rotor, you can see it also on the bridge there. So just a couple of examples of Côtes de Genève. Let's see, what else do we have? Perlage. Let's talk about Perlage. That's another one. And this one is kind of like small circles that you can see. Kind of challenging to see on this one, but more so on the base plate of this JLC. A little bit harder to notice. I'm actually going to go to my Reuter because it's more noticeable there. Let me see if I can get this in focus. So if you look here, I need a tool to actually point this out, but Perlage is actually here. You can see it in the rose gold right there. And then you can see it on the base plate here in steel. And it's just little circles. It looks like little pearls almost, kind of hence the name. And so, yeah, it's kind of tough to see it. Now I got fingerprints on it there. But yeah, right up here is the Perlage on a watch. And again, a lot of these are just decorative. They don't actually do anything. They're not functional in any way. It's just to make the movement look beautiful. And, this Reuter is fantastic. Again, Dan does an awesome job. If you've not seen this review on my channel, I would highly, highly recommend it because it's a great looking watch. So let's see, what else can we do? This is a good example to talk about with what we call Anglage or beveling. And beveling or Anglage is essentially when you hand polish a mechanical component so that it's not cut to a flat edge or surface. So you can see, like right here on the rotor, there's beveling on the rotor. So it's not, it's not something like this where it's just mechanically cut, and it's straight. What they do is you create a little bit of a inward angle on whatever the mechanical component is that you're beveling. So again, you can see the bevel kind of goes around the center of the rotor right here, and then to the other side. And then let's see, you can also see like on the edge of this bridge right here, you can see that there is also beveling. So again, versus it just being like a straight machine cut, what you do is you then take a, usually it's like a fine piece of wood of certain material, and you finish it to make it angled so it looks decorative, and that is really expressed on this DR02 here. Let's see what else. Black polishing. Let's talk about that. And you can see a couple of examples of it as I move this watch in and out of the light. Anything that you can see that turns from black to basically really silver and high polish is black polished, or poly noir, or specular polish, or mirror polish. All kind of synonymous terms for that. And again, you can see it as I move the light here. So some of these screws are black polished. You can see that. The center of the rotor bearings are black polished. And then you can see the bevel also black polished. So just some examples there of black polishing. Let's see. I'm trying to think of if I've got any examples of this next one. So there's another technique that's called snailing. You see this a lot on barrels. And you can't actually see the JLC here, so there's not really much that I can show you in terms of snailing, but it almost looks like another term for it is solarization. And so if you look at like some watches, like if you look at Moritz Grossman, or there's a couple other brands, Romain Gaultier is another really great independent brand, and if you look at the barrel on those watches, it'll almost look like a spiral is mechanically applied to the barrel. It's just a very, very cool looking effect. So yeah, so just something else that you'll see. What else here? I'm trying to think. There is sunburst finishing, so if you have lines that kind of radiate out from a center point, sometimes you'll see sunburst Côte de Genève, which like on some JLC tourbillons, you'll see where the Côte de Genève actually is not straight up and down like it is on this one, but it actually kind of radiates out from the center of the balance wheel where the tourbillon would be. So that's an example of like sunburst Côte de Genève. That's kind of cool. Let's see. I think that's probably about it. There's frosting that you can use, which is kind of the opposite of polishing, gives it more of a grainy texture. And it's not as reflective as like what you see again, less on the JLC. You can see like the winding system here is black polished on the JLC. There's a lot more black polishing on the Dan Reuter, but so just another example there. Oh, and I guess maybe one other thing we can talk about is something that's really subtle with finishing here, and that is bluing. And so if you look at these screws right here, you can see that they're actually a little bit blue. And those are not colored blue. Those are actually fired blue screws. And so what that's done by holding a screw above a flame or kiln, and it actually oxidizes the screw to turn it blue. Kind of a subtle detail, but Jaeger-LeCoultre is one of the brands that does this. There are obviously plenty more. But just an example of that. Now you can see that Perlage right down under here on the main plate, base plate underneath the hairspring, or the balance. So just another example of fine finishing. So that's pretty much it for today. Just wanted to cover some of the finishing techniques that you'll see used on luxury watches often. And again, part of it is knowing some of the terminology for some of these aspects of the movement. So at some point I'll do another video talking about just kind of movement architecture and just some of the basics of that, just so that you can understand the different things you'll see if you look at the back of a watch. But that's really it for finishing. So again, hopefully you got something interesting or useful out of the video. And as I always say, my wish for you is that you get out of watches whatever you want to get out of watches. Because I want you to be a satisfied collector. I want you to know the watches you have and love the watches that you have. So hopefully you have a great day. Like, comment, and subscribe on the video, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.